In the second part of tonight's class, we continue the discussion, realizing the sages say we are supposed to work hard. So what does that mean? And how do we reconcile that with doing a little work?
Sarah, I think, I'll share whenever we were moving to Huntsville from Oklahoma, we loved it there, but we just knew we were going to stay there. We were supposed to move it. We were putting forth all this, I feel like we were putting forth effort, like, trying to figure out where to, she wanted us to go and what was that going to look like? How was it going to happen? Where my husband was in his career. And out of nowhere, he came in one day and he was kind of like, this has definitely got to be all Hashem. He was like, because I'm interviewing for a position in a place where there's nobody there with my job. And so he knew what it was, and he got the job, and then we moved here. And then even with our house, we looked, and we were looking for much smaller houses and lower price to be more comfortable. And that's what we wanted. And it was like, we were getting outbid, thinking it just kind of naturally where he reminded me of this. And we kept coming back to this one house. It was very modest compared to, some of the others and stuff, but it was still more than we wanted. And it turned out, that was our house. And, and it's been, such a blessing and everything, but it's definitely been that we've had to put forth a lot of effort to get things done and to get things where they were. And I'm not always sure why, it's like we had crazy things with the house, like so many things were wrong with it. And we ended up having to put forth a lot of effort to get things fixed. I'm talking about like the builder had to reframe parts of it. Wow. Yeah, big things. So lots of effort has had to go in, and I don't know, I think a lot of it, I don't know, maybe our son will be an engineer or, but, so I'm really curious to see like what happens with all the effort that we've put into being here and just kind of some of the journeys we've had since we've been here. But I know that there is something that we don't necessarily see, but we're going to keep, doing what we're doing.
Wow. So what you said just reminded me of a story I just heard. So Christelle said she's definitely seen the effort. And yes, it's work, but with a lot of effort. And then she said she doesn't know why they had to literally start reframing their house, maybe so their son should become an engineer. So that just reminded me of something I just heard on Friday. Story that happened to touch me very deeply because of something I was going through. I was dealing with a car rental for like 3 days. So I think that's why I was more affected by the story, because it has to do with a car rental. But I'm just going to say the story briefly. It's very powerful. That just resonated with what Christelle was saying. So this happened probably like 30 some years ago, 30 plus years ago. In the Jewish religious world, a lot of times after high school, boys and girls go to study for a year in Israel. So this boy from LA, I'll just say his name to make it faster time in the story, Joel Bass, and he spends a year in Israel. He comes back to LA, and 2 of his friends that had been studying with him said, "Oh, can we come and visit you in the summer? We always want to see LA. Seems cool, LA. Yeah, sure, come. We'll have a great time together." So these 2 other boys, probably all about a year of high school, they come to visit their friend Joel. For some reason, I remember Joel's name, but I don't remember the name of the main person. I don't know. We'll call him Mark. So Mark comes with his friend, and Mark, it's LA. You need a car to get around. So Mark rents a car, and they're going around, and they're having a great time. And one night, Mark is sleeping, and Joel and the other guy are up, and they're young, wild kids. Middle of the night, Joel says, "Let's just go for a ride." He left the keys. Let's just go for a ride. Yeah, great idea. Mark, I called him Mark, that's not his name, is sleeping. Joel and the other guy, they jump into the rental. Kids, 2 a.m, speeding on the roads of LA, and they get into an accident. And they're like, "Oh my God." Suddenly, like reality check. We're in this rental car. Our names are not on the we're totally liable. Forget about his insurance. It's not on our name. We're not drivers. This was a crash of the car, of the other car. What are we going to do? And being young and stupid, they said, "We're going to run away." So, well, everyone, they just ran away. They left the car and they ran. It wasn't so far from the house, and they ran. They were back to the house. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do now?" I don't know if they're running in, woke up Mark, or whatever. But he's like, well, what's going on? And they tell him the story, like, we just totaled your car, your rental. But what are we going to do? We just ran away. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then Joel had this very brilliant idea at 3 a.m. He's like, you know what? Let's go back. You'll show up. You'll say, you're not from California. It's a rental car. You got scared. You heard a lot of carjackings in California. So you ran away. You got us for support in case it's some criminals. And you came back to the crash. Like, you're not, you're coming back. You're not trying to run away. You just wanted support. Great idea. They all thought it was a great idea. They walk, and Mark goes over. Of course, there's cops there by now. And he says, hi, my name is Mark. This was my car. Yeah, I was just in this crash. They're like, well, where were you? He said, well, I hear I'm from New York. They hear about carjackings in California. So I went away. I just want to get my friends to see those 2 guys there. So I shouldn't be alone in case there's anybody suspicious here. Cop says, you were in the crash and you left? He says, yeah. Cop said, well, that's a hit and run. I'm like, no, I came back. I came back. I'm here. I wasn't trying to run away. I just got them. He got arrested, spent the night in jail at this major court case. He was fuming mad at the 2 guys. And he's like, that's it. Don't talk to me for the rest of my life. And he spent a long time and a lot of money. He's from New York, flying back and forth to California, and his court and lawyers' fees until they cleared him. Fine, life moves on for him. He had nothing to do with those 2 guys. Life moves on. He's in college. He finishes. He gets his degree in business, and he goes for a job interview. This is already 97. He goes for a job interview, and yeah, they want him. Great, terrific. They're telling him to go to HR. We're setting everything up. Great job. He's so excited with a really good firm. And then as he's filling out the paperwork at HR, at the bottom, there's a question: were you ever arrested? I mean, I was, but it wasn't my fault. It was really those guys' fault. I didn't do anything wrong, but I was arrested. So he checks, yes, he was arrested. And they didn't give him the job. And he's thinking, what is going on? What is God doing to me? It was not my fault. It was never my fault. I never did anything wrong. I was sleeping. They. And I thought I got past it. And now this is haunting me. I can't even get a job there. Anyway, he pulled himself together. He continued. He got a job. Shortly after that, he actually got the papers from the court saying his whole case was expunged. It's not on the record anymore. Doesn't have to tell anyone he was arrested. Totally removed from the records. He got a job, and he, thank God, started doing very well. And then 4 years later was 9/11. And when 9/11 happened, he realized maybe why God did it this way. If he had taken that original job, he would have been on a floor that was completely blown away on 9/11. So again, I'm cutting short the long story, but he reconnected with this original Joel, and he said, whatever God's plan, you saved my life. So sometimes if Christelle is saying, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be an engineer, we don't know God's plans. And it's hard, and I can't even imagine what this man went through now as a man, but as a kid, and suddenly you have all these legal difficulties and all this money you're spending, and you feel like, what is going on? What is going on? Why is this happening to you? What did I do? God has a plan. God has a plan. God has a plan. Whatever it looks like, it's always God's good plan. It's always God's good plan. And we just, sometimes we can wonder, and we don't know, and we can't always envision why. Can't always envision why. But just like Natalie was saying a few minutes ago, now she realizes that job she took a few years ago gave her the training for the job she took now. Because she has this job now, she can put more money down, which is how they could get the house. So maybe 4 or 5 years ago when she was in that other job, and she's like, why am I taking this job? And it's so stupid. So, whatever was going through her head then, but we just keep walking with God and knowing that, yes, nothing is random. There is always a reason. And thank God we have a very good, loving God with us. And the more we're, of course, with him, the more he can be overtly with us. And sometimes we even merit to see it. Okay, so then getting back to what we were talking about, I was just triggered by Christelle's comments, but that was impromptu. But so we discussed last week, and we reviewed today, that in general, we're supposed to make weaker efforts in the physical realm, right? We said put it on the bottom of the totem pole. We need to work, but we need much more to trust God. We need much more to make spiritual efforts. So intensify the spiritual efforts and the work. Intensify the spiritual efforts and the trust. And much less degree, do something physical so God could pretend it was natural, not American. That's what we said last week very strongly. Now we're saying, by the way, the sage is saying this is a really important saying, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe shows us as the 4 phrases from the entire ocean of Talmudic thought. You have to have effort. And if someone says, oh, I succeeded without any effort, no, God doesn't work that way. God put us in this world to work. Effort, not little, effort. And then we were saying, no, just do something so God could pretend it's not a miracle. And now we're saying you need work. And Christelle said, yeah, her move and her husband's job change and the house, it was a lot of effort. And I've had this experience many times. Like I said to my daughter today about the car, I'm like, it could be we're going through all of this so we can get the car, a different car. It's crazy. We drove so far, we had so much frustration and the wrong house and waiting to see someone else ahead of us in line. Come on, what's going on? So then we can get the car we're supposed to get. So how do we connect? How do we reconcile these two seemingly conflicting ideas of we only make effort because God wants us to so he can pretend it's not a miracle, with the Talmud's injunction, we're here to work and effort creates success. And if you put forth effort, you will see success. And if you don't, you won't. Any ideas, any thoughts how to reconcile these two seemingly conflicting ideas?
Maybe it's like you said, don't be lazy and do nothing, but don't focus so hard on the effort that you completely lose the spirituality. Because I think maybe depending on your personality, you could get pulled into one or the other. So if you say both, you'll meet in the middle.
That sounds good. Anyone else? Any other ideas how to reconcile, make minimal effort to make effort?
I was going to say something along those lines with Natalie, with, as long as we're continuing to work and push toward it, then we're probably not going into the woe is me. We're probably not going into, some of those other kind of, areas of our brain as far as like, complaining or judging or whining or whatever it may be, because we're still putting forth effort and we're believing.
So I was thinking, because this was also, I don't have a teacher's book, but I was thinking that maybe the bar could be, maybe the fact that we're being told two messages that don't seem to jive, but obviously must. Minimal effort just to make sure that you're doing something in the physical arena, and effort. And effort is what's needed to create what you want. Maybe the bar would be if someone was not worried or stressed over the issue, how much effort would they expend? If there was no concerning medical issue, you would call your doctor, get an appointment when it's available, and that's it. So if it's a concerning medical issue, that's what you should do. If your daughter was the most eligible girl on the block, maybe you would reach out to 1 or 2 matchmakers, maybe you would network in another way. It's every 2 months. So that's what you should do. Even though she's getting older, maybe she's not the most eligible girl on the block anymore. But let's say someone would say, well, without any concerns, I would network about my daughter every other week, just as regular protocol. So that's what you should do. If you're looking for a job, stress-free, you don't need the money today, you're confident in your degrees, you're confident in your experience, and you would every day send out your resume through a different search engine, that's your appropriate effort. Even though you feel now such pressure that you must have this job yesterday. Well, what if somebody else would send out their resume once a week? Well, then that's their appropriate effort. Meaning there's not a bar of how many times you send out a resume or how many times you call a matchmaker or how many doctors you consult with. The bar is, if you weren't stressed, what would you be doing? Because as we discussed last week, the problem with overly trying in the physical realm is we start prioritizing that. We start thinking that's what's creating the salvation. That's why I'm calling 3 different, 4 different, 5 different doctors or matchmakers or career helpers Because I'm like believing that's where my salvation's coming from. That's the problem. But otherwise, it's whatever you would do in terms of your personality, society, culture, stress-free. This is what I would do. You could do exactly that when you now have reason to be stressed. Well, maybe for me, that's calling once a day. Okay, if that's what you do and you're not stressed, call once a day. Me, I would call for a doctor's appointment, and if they told me the next one's available in 6 weeks, I would wait. Got other things on my head in the interim. So that's what I need to do if I have a lot of medical fear. But if you would say, no way, I'm not gonna wait 6 weeks. I want an appointment tomorrow. I have no concern, but I'm not waiting 6 weeks because that's not how I operate. So you could also now get the appointment tomorrow. So it's not how much you do. It's how much you do in contrast to how much you would normally do. So again, are you making weaker physical efforts? Yes, because your gut instinct is help and I need 10 doctors or 10 matchmakers or 10 career builders. No, because that means I believe in them. I don't believe in them, so I can't go that route. But at the same time, is there some work I would normally do because one needs to function in this world and do work to create results? Of course. And I have to. And that work I must do. But more than that, already would mean I'm starting to believe it. Now, what if a person says, I can't handle this? I'm getting older. Yes, I used to reach out to a matchmaker twice a week. Now I want to reach out 3 times a day. Or a fertility issue, or any issue that drives us crazy. I don't want to, I'm not relaxed enough to just do what I would normally do. I really need to do a lot more. So I need to do a lot more. Am I allowed to, or am I like previously sinning? You're allowed to. It's just not necessary. So if you're feeling stressed and nervous because you can't do any more, because that would be wrong spiritually, it's okay. Do more. But try very hard not to believe in the physical efforts you're making, even though everything inside of you is very nervous and wants to make a lot of physical efforts. Make the physical efforts if that will lower your stress, but don't believe in them. If you don't believe in them, they're not counterproductive. Once you start believing in them, they are counterproductive. And then you should not be doing them because they are counterproductive. It's sort of a very fine line of making efforts, but not believing in them. And of course, you could say, well, if I'm being honest and I don't believe in them, why would I want to do more and more and more? That must show I believe in them. Not necessarily. Sometimes people want to feel they're doing something, like it helps their nerves. So I just got to keep doing something. You know, some people like chew toothpicks. You know, I got to do something. So fine, keep doing if it makes you feel better. So you have to work on reminding yourself again and again and again and again and again and again. It's very counterintuitive. This is not creating my salvation. My salvation only comes from God. Has anyone here done this, that they have needed something and they've definitely made efforts in the physical realm, but they consciously did not believe that their cure was coming through these efforts? They just made the efforts because that's what you're supposed to do. Has anyone had that experience? Making the effort because that's what you're supposed to do, but not believing in the efforts, not believing that's what's creating the reality. It's a high bar, but that's really, really, really what you need. Do the work. Don't believe in it and don't believe it's creating. So any tips? How to remember that and not lose focus?